Okay, welcome David. Thank you very much for
Thank
coming
you for
to this
volunteering
interview.
to interview me. It's nice to get
Not
a
at
chance to
all.
talk to you.
Not at all. David, I was very interested to hear your talk earlier on today. And with all your experience and all the different kind of dimensions of various programs to support children and young people and to prevent sexual abuse, what do you think of the self-care programs for children and adolescents to prevent their exposure to sexual abuse?
Well, there are a lot of programs that have been developed around the world that present prevention education to school-aged children, usually in the school environment, to try and keep them safer. And I'm a big proponent of those programs. There's been a fair amount of evaluation that shows that the children learn the concepts that are being presented by the programs. They're able to enact some of the behaviors, the refusal skills and the disclosure skills, that they tend to disclose episodes that have occurred to them after they've gotten that kind of training. And even a couple of the programs, particularly the ones with the adolescents, have actually shown that they are able to prevent some kinds of sexual assault after the kids have received the program. So that's very good news. Now, there is a strain of thought out there in the sexual abuse world that we should put less emphasis on these educational programs for children because it is immoral to put the responsibility of protection onto children themselves. There should be adults who should have the responsibility, and even more so that we can't expect children who are not very powerful and not very educated to protect themselves in the context of activities of much older, more mature, resourced adults. And I just don't think that's the right way to think about it. We have some programs that have some evidence that they actually work. And I think children would want to have that knowledge and information, if they were given a vote in what we should do for them. I think it's a little bit like an analogy with bicycle helmets. I mean, certainly we want to make sure that adults are driving safely and are watching out for kids, but we wouldn't want to say, well, it's morally improper to teach kids to wear bicycle helmets because that's putting the responsibility for safety onto the kids themselves. No, you do the kids, you do the adults. It's all part of a package.
Okay, so the limitations of self-care programs for children and young people, you'd say are what?
Well, one of the limitations is that it puts a lot of burden on school authorities and school officials. They have a lot of responsibilities these days for education and prevention in a lot of realms, and they're under funding pressures, and so it's a lot to ask of them to add this to their curriculum. That's one problem. Another problem is that because these are one-size-fits-all universal prevention programs, it doesn't necessarily help some of the kids who need the most help, whose problems and situations are quite complicated, who may have already suffered from these kinds of experiences, and who maybe need some others more individualized attention.
Okay, so where there are self-care programs for both children and adolescents, what do you think the role of adults is in those programs?
Well, adults always have a very important role, and typically, as part of those programs, the school, the teachers, the school officials all get trained and educated about sexual abuse. And typically there's a component of the education that goes home to the parents to encourage the parent conversation with the child. So those are very important components to those programs as well. And frankly, we probably reach more adults through these school-based programs than we do through independent programs targeted at adults alone, because it's kind of hard to connect with adults outside of some institutional context.
Okay, well, thank you very much for that. And for you, how valuable do you think it's been to take part in a conference like this?
Well, for me, it's tremendously valuable because of all the people I get to meet from very different places in the world and different kinds of professional activities. You know, I'm a academic, so I sit in an office a lot of my time looking at data and reading books and just trying to put that together with the things that real people are doing in real situations is wonderfully rewarding for me. I often wonder how much I contribute to the discussion. I hope it's useful for people to hear some of the conceptualizations and research information that I put together that gives people some insights into what works and how to think about these things in a more complicated way.
I'm sure your presentation did do that, but in terms of the conference, more generally, and there's a number of different workshops and presentations, how do you think that will help people working on the ground in a country, say, like Tanzania?
Well, I don't know a great deal about Tanzania, but I presume that information is a scarce commodity here, that people are kind of more isolated than in the places that I come from by the fact that there's not a lot of travel isn't that easy, communications may not be that easy, education may not be that available. So you have an event like this where there's a lot of information, the kind of cornucopia that people can come to and get some exposure to, see the nature of things that are going on kind of outside and other places in the world, and hopefully they'll be inspired by it. Their interest will be piqued. They'll see the opportunities to get more information. They'll find some people that they can contact in the future to if they want to get better educated. I think that the effects of these meetings are much more varied and complicated than the planners and the designers actually imagine. But we do know that in some of these areas, like with sexual abuse, that the knowledge base has just been growing around the world very rapidly, and certainly meetings of this sort have been one of the main vehicles by which that knowledge has expanded and multiplied. So, we have a model that has been working. Whether it's the most efficient model, I don't know, but I certainly see that this kind of model has been of great value, and certainly being replicated here in Tanzania strikes me as a very smart thing to do.
Good. This was very specifically pitched at towards practitioners rather than being a talk shop for those who are more familiar with doing that. So you would say that the workshop format and the mix of things has been useful.
Yes. Well, I've only been to 2 workshops in addition to my own, so it's a little bit hard for me to evaluate the whole mix here.
Your impression?
But I've certainly been to what I would say are equivalent kinds of meetings in a lot of other places in the world, and among the things that happen that you just can't predict, there will be somebody who comes who gets inspired by something that she sees or somebody that she meets, and then she goes off and gets more information and then decides to start a program or develop a specialty on a particular topic that she saw someone present on, and then a whole new program, a whole new development occurs on the basis of that little seed that was planted. And you just see that kind of thing happening so often that it gives you real encouragement that these kinds of meetings do plant a lot of those seeds.
Okay. And just one last question for me. A number of the interventions that we've talked about are quite resource intensive over a long time. What do you see as the main issue in terms of sustainability in a country, say, like Tanzania?
Well,
sustainability approach.
Yeah. I think that there are many things that we can train people without professional educations to do that are extremely positive and transformative for children in need. I mean, if you think about it, parenting skills have been transmitted by non-professionals from generation to generation for all of human history. But today we know some things about parenting and about caring for children that are based on science and research, and we can help impart those things to people in the population who don't necessarily have professional training, and who can help other people to adopt those kinds of practices. And I think they can be among the most powerful transformative elements in society. You know, one of the things that I see all over the world, and I think it's mostly been transmitted in this way, is that we see a shift from what I would call discipline-based parenting to affection-based parenting. And I think it's been an enormous transformation to the benefit of children to be raised in that kind of a way. And a lot of it sort of disseminates through kind of osmosis. People seeing other people do it, people talking to their friends about dealing with problems that they have with their children. I think we can potentiate that process by, teaching ordinary people about these skills and having them help train and encourage their friends and neighbors and relatives to do them as well. And so it doesn't have to be tremendously resource intensive to get a lot of social change for the better with regards to the treatment of children.
Great, well, that's a very positive note to end, so thank you very much for your time and for our interview today. Thank you, David.